not a very auspicious start to a new term, as it were. Although May is the month of holidays, we've got another one coming up towards the end of another couple of weeks' time. So perhaps it's not a good month to settle down such a marker for the rest of the year. But nonetheless, we have been playing around on the weekend. We were sufficiently intrigued with the stories that we were running last week, particularly from our good old friend, the Star newspaper, about artificial intelligence and how it was going to take over and so on and so forth, and saying, oh, how dreadful this is. But I decided over the weekend to take a look to see what artificial intelligence could do for television. And it's in its infancy at the moment, but it's quite impressive in some ways. And I'll demonstrate that to you in a moment or two. First of all, let's just say that the newspapers this morning, the front pages were full of good bonhomie, shall we put it that way, and support for Charlie. And I think that probably they reflect a certain national mood. It probably isn't reflected that much in Lewes, because Lewes has always been a Republican town. And we shall talk about that in a minute and give you some background as to why it's a Republican town. It's had its flirt with royalty over the years. And although it's a little backwater now, in many ways, it has been at the center of British history as a very important town. So, artificial intelligence, we'll take a look and see what it can do. And he said, and then we'll talk about the background to it. The two things that I think that I'd like to warn you about. One is that we have a holiday coming up in 2 weeks' time. So everything is going to be a bit unsettled. And we have a new council in place as of Friday, I suppose. But they were all sort of celebrating what I see as a complete and utter disaster, actually. No, don't get all upset. It's not me being a conservative. On the contrary, I'm as critical of the Conservatives as anybody else. But what I am also terribly worried about is that our form of government demands a spirited opposition. We haven't got it anymore. Our council is composed of Greens, Lib Dems, and Labour. Not even one independent in sight. Now, they, with the best will in the world, would all be termed as soft left. There is no soft right. And the Conservatives here were an odd bunch, yes, but they would have been considered to be soft right. And even if they'd have had a rump, they would have been able to provide an opposition to what is now essentially a left-wing council roaring ahead without anybody to stop them. Well, part of the role of media, and a free media, is to act as a watchdog, is to act as an opposition, is to say the unpalatable. And that's what we plan to do. They don't like us very much at the moment because we've been doing that anyway. But we will be the watchdog as best we can. We're under-resourced, we're undermanned, we're under everything. But our spirit is here, and we believe in our community. We believe in our society. We believe in a healthy society, and not the partisan type politics and partisan type thinking that takes place. And we're also disappointed in how the business community operates here. It seems to bellyache a lot about the state of the high street and how it's done by, but it doesn't do much to help itself. Not at all. Not at all, at all, at all. And that is something that's got to stop. Well, now let's go back to history, because next weekend is the Battle of Lewes will be reenacted. I think they're reenacted down at the Priory Field, Priory Park. And to me, the Battle of Lewes, you can say nothing against it, because it was the first glimmer of English democracy, when Simon de Montfort beat Henry III, and as a consequence was able to set up a first parliament in Westminster. The parliament in Westminster that we saw on the television over the weekend. A ceremony held for William the Conqueror in Westminster Abbey. And just around the corner, St. Stephen's Palace. Is it? Yes, it is. The Palace of Westminster, anyway. Neither the House of Commons nor the House of Lords. Totally neutral. That's where the first Parliament sat, and where there were representatives of the barons. Not exactly democracy as we know it, but it was a start. A start that Magna Carta, 50 years before, had failed to give us. So the Battle of Lewes, one of the key moments in English history. But another key moment in English history is the Battle of Haywards Heath. Battle of Haywards Heath, you say? Goodness gracious me, never heard of that? No, most people haven't. And sometimes it's known as the Battle of Muster Green. Where's Muster Green? Well, as you drive into Haywards Heath, there is a little park, a little triangle that starts the one-way system. That is Muster Green. That's where the battle took place between the Royalists and the parliamentarians. Parliamentarian force gathered up by the key guy in Glynde, and set off to meet a Royalist force that was marching on Lewes to take the Newtons, the Newton family, who lived in the Grange and who were leading Cromwellians, leading Republicans. And it was the victory of the Cromwellians over the Royalists at Muster Green that kept East Sussex, or the South if you like, out of the hands of the Royalists. Strategically, an area that they needed to control. So that is the Battle of Haywards Heath. Yes, there was a Haywards Heath well before the railway. Most people only think it cropped up, but you can go into the Dolphin Inn there, and the Dolphin Inn was alive and well and serving ale at the time of the Civil War, in the 1500s and the 1600s. So, not as young as you think, and the site of a very, very key battle. Very key battle indeed. Anyway, we'll go back to that, because I hope that what I can do is I can show you, he said, I hope that I can show you just a little bit of an English Civil War a battle. And I say hope because, yes, yeah, let's try it. Let's try it. Now, there we are, a battle and a summary of the key events in the English Civil War. It doesn't mention the Battle of Muster Green or the Battle of Haywards Heath. And so that's why we'll tell you a little bit about it. Because it was one of the key battles, small though it was in comparison to some of the others, that kept the South, kept East Sussex out of the hands of the Royalists, who held the West Country. And they held it by virtue of being in charge of Arundel Castle. But unfortunately, they had their nose blooded at Arundel. The castle actually changed hands 2 or 3 times, but eventually the Royalists were heaved out because it was under siege from Cromwellians. But it seemed everything in the garden was rosy because it had lots of food, lots and lots and lots of food, enough food to last it for months and months and months. What it didn't have was water. And the supply into the castle came from a lake outside, a small lake. So what did the Cromwellians do? They took control of the lake. And they soon starved the Royalists out of the castle, not for lack of food, but for lack of water. So the Royalists were smarting from that defeat, but at the same time strategically realized that if the war was to swing in their favor, they needed to take East Sussex, and that really meant taking Lewes. Eastbourne didn't exist. Brighton was a tiny little shrimp fishing village. Any of the other major towns, with the exception of Chichester, didn't exist. Well, they did. They were in village form. But the Royalists, in response to being turfed out of Arundel, did win Chichester. And it was from Chichester that they launched their attack on Lewes. And why? Because Lewes was a staunch stronghold. A staunch stronghold. Of republicanism. The Newton family, who built the Grange, which is extant today, filched the building materials from the priory when it was pulled down by the forerunner of Oliver Cromwell. I think he was the great uncle or great grandfather, Thomas Cromwell, and he used it to build the fine mansion which is extant today. It's still there. And then the town was very subject to Oliver Cromwell's wish. There was the banning of mince pies at Christmas, and the very stern way of life that you. Right. Okay. I think that we're trying to, or we're coming to the conclusion that it is the power source this morning that is. There's something wrong with the power source. It's not our bits and pieces after all. I'll get Kevin to look at it eventually. the and the anyway, back to back to Oliver Cromwell, who really made sure that people lived a very, very, very stern life, and the royalists who had long wavy hair and colourful clothes and so on were seen as real rogues and ruffians, and those who lived a very dissolute life. So there's a very marked contrast between the two sides. Anyway, um, the laird, not his true title, but the man who was in charge of Glynde, gathered a force, marched off to meet the Cromwellian, the Royalist army at Muster Green, Haywards Heath, fought them, sent them packing, and saved the day for Lewes. And as a consequence, this town has had a Republican theme ever since. The funny thing is that he stopped bonfire celebrations, Oliver Cromwell, and that was actually tantamount to committing suicide. Except for some reason he got away with it, and the bonfire societies. Well, they weren't the bonfire societies then, but the supporters of bonfire, who had to keep it going, basically fighting the Lord Protector, as he put himself, not just the authorities who wanted to shut it down because it made a lot of noise. So there you are. That's a little bit of history, and let's just take a look at that again, shall we? Because I think that just to see what artificially generated videos can look like is a very interesting experiment, and indeed one that we will start to use if we can. Let's take a look at it again. Oh, yeah. Is obviously, I mean, that was generated no more than 10 minutes ago. So it needs some obviously tweaking and twerking, and making sure that it's up to snuff. But it is quite impressive, I must confess, and something that we'll have to take a look at as we go along and try to keep pace with what's happening in the industry. Now, there was one other, whether in fact I can find this one other very short one that I loved, and if I can find that, then it'll make my day, because this one was just absolutely hilarious, and we. It's yeah, it's all right. It's sort of fun. It was sort of fun. Perhaps we're not going to have any more luck than we normally do in finding these things, but just in case, well, just in case. he said. But that's artificial intelligence for you, and it's obviously as the critics say, it's in a very raw state at the moment, but it's going to more and more take over. And so we, along with everybody else, have to start to keep an eye on it and play by the rules, as it were. Well, it's almost it's 54 anyway. We're coming up to the end of this little stint. Well, it's actually just a little food item, and it was so amusing that I felt that I had to save it for re-showing, and it's if only we could. If only we could find it for you. But I'm afraid that we are in a bit of a mess this morning, and I do apologize once again. This time it was not of our making. I'm happy to say, not of our making at all. And I'm the first to hold my hand up when we get ourselves into a pickle, and it's my fault. Oh dear. It should be the weather, but it's not. Thank goodness it's just that time after a long break, because there's some sort of excuse, isn't there, for being all at sixes and sevens, as indeed we are this morning, and is well, who knows what we should have and what we shouldn't have. And I could play you all sorts of rubbish, I suppose. Well, no, it's not rubbish. It's good stuff. But I did want to try and show you a couple of other things generated by artificial intelligence, and just so that you know where television is going and the sort of thing that we can expect in the future. Yes, indeed. Oh, not. No, there we go. That keeps. All right. I'm not going to fool around anymore. It's 9:58. So we're going to take another couple of minutes break and see what else is floating around. Until then, just a little interim toodle pip.